You noticed the odd little worry as you turned off the light. That last thing you ate might follow you into sleep. It is one of those bedtime folk beliefs, passed around kitchens for generations, a slice of cheese before bed, and the dreams turn strange. But the story is older and warmer than the evidence beneath it, and it leaves a quiet question hanging in the dark. Does what you eat at night truly walk into your dreams? Here is the part that unsettles the tidy version everyone repeats. The famous cheese gives you nightmares idea traces back mostly to one small, playful survey, and the science underneath it is far thinner than the confidence people carry to bed. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. So tonight, we follow the belief gently, honestly, all the way down to what researchers can and cannot actually say, the dairy, the small survey, the way a late smack stirs sleep, just enough that you remember more of the dreams already there. You are somewhere warm and unhurried, a curious mind letting one harmless bedtime worry loosen its grip. Let the folklore soften into a question you no longer have to answer tonight. Let us follow the belief down to where it began. Maybe you have woken from a night stitched together out of odd little scenes and thought back to the cheese and crackers you had before bed. It is one of the oldest food and sleep suspicions we carry, and researchers have finally started poking at it honestly. The truth is gentler than the folklore. There is no solid proof that cheese plants strange dreams in your head. What sits underneath everything we wander through tonight is one quiet question. Does what you eat in the evening truly walk into your dreams? Or does it only stand nearby while your sleeping mind does its own thing? We will not answer that yet. We will just begin to loosen the knot of it slowly, the way you loosen a shoe before rest. You have probably heard someone say with great confidence that cheese gives you nightmares. It feels like common knowledge, the kind passed hand to hand at dinner tables. Yet when researchers look for the study behind the saying, they mostly find absence. There is no landmark experiment showing cheese reliably twists dreams dark. What we have instead is folklore wearing the coat of fact, repeated so often it started to feel measured. This is worth knowing before we go further, because it changes how you hold the whole idea. The belief is real and widespread. The evidence beneath it is thin, soft, and far less certain than the confidence with which people repeat it. Think of the last time a rich, late meal left you tossing, half dreaming, restless in a way a lighter night never brings. That restlessness is real, and it has a plain explanation that has little to do with cheese specifically. When you eat close to bedtime, your body is still working, digesting, warming, processing at the very hours it would rather be winding down. Studies suggest late eating can nudge your core temperature up slightly and keep the digestive system busy, and both of those can make sleep shallower. The stir you felt may have been your body dividing its attention, quietly doing two jobs at once when it only wanted to rest. There is a comfort in blaming the cheese, and it turns out that comfort itself may be part of the story. If you go to bed already expecting vivid dreams, you tend to notice and remember them more. Psychologists call this expectation effect, and it colors far more of our experience than we like to admit. Believe cheese will stir your dreams, and your morning mind goes looking for strangeness to report, and usually finds some, because most nights hold odd fragments anyway. Researchers suggest a good share of the cheese dream reputation may live here, in anticipation rather than in the food. The dream you blamed on dairy may have been waiting for you regardless. Perhaps you've noticed that warm milk before bed carries a soothing reputation, the opposite of cheese's spooky one, yet both come from the same dairy. Science offers one shared reason. People reach for either, a substance called tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid found in milk, cheese, turkey, and many everyday foods, and your body uses it as raw material for serotonin and then melatonin, the chemistry of calm and sleep. So dairy is not, by its nature, a dream disturber. If anything, its best-known ingredient leans toward rest. The same cheese folklore treats as a troublemaker holds a molecule, your body quietly turns toward sleep. You may assume that eating a food rich in tryptophan floods your brain with sleepiness, the way a glass of water quenches thirst. The reality is softer and more crowded than that. Tryptophan has to compete with several other amino acids for the same doorway into the brain, and it often loses the crowd. Researchers note that the amount in a normal serving of cheese is modest, and much of it never reaches your brain in a form that shifts your dreams. This is one reason the science stays humble here. The pathway exists, but it is narrow, contested, and easily overstated. A little cheese is not a dose of dream fuel. Consider how differently a small square of cheese sits in you compared with a heavy, late plate of it. That difference matters more than the food's identity. Sleep researchers point out that portion size and timing shape your night far more than any single ingredient. A light snack an hour or two before bed rarely disturbs much. A large, fatty serving, eaten as your head hits the pillow, gives your body a real task to finish while you are trying to fall away. Fat digests slowly, and slow digestion keeps a low hum of activity running. The cheese did not haunt you. The size and the hour of it simply asked your body to stay a little awake. Maybe you have woken more often on nights after a big evening meal, surfacing again and again without knowing why. Those small awakenings turn out to be central to the whole dream question. We dream most vividly during REM sleep, and we tend to remember a dream best when we wake soon after one. When a late, heavy meal fragments your sleep, you drift up out of REM more frequently, and each of those brief surfacings is a chance to catch a dream in the act. So the food may not be building stranger dreams at all. It may only be waking you at the exact moments when the dreams you always have become easy to recall. You might picture your stomach and your sleeping brain as two separate countries, unaware of each other through the night. In truth, they trade signals constantly. Researchers describe a steady conversation between the gut and the brain, carried by nerves and hormones, that continues even in sleep. A stomach still working through a rich meal keeps sending mild alerts upward, and those small nudges can lighten your sleep and shift its rhythm. This does not mean cheese writes your dreams. It means a busy gut can change the texture of the night around them, how deep you go, how often you rise. The dream stays yours. The digestion just adjusts the room it plays in. If you have ever felt certain that a particular food ruined your rest, hold that certainty gently for a moment. What the evidence keeps showing, layer by layer, is that the cheese itself is rarely the true author of a strange night. Timing, portion, expectation, and the ordinary rhythm of dreaming do most of the work. The question we opened is already shifting shape. We began by asking whether what you eat walks into your dreams, and it is starting to look more like this. Your food may not enter the dream at all, only rearrange the doorway you remember it through. We are not finished. But the folklore is loosening, and something quieter and truer is taking its place. Perhaps you have blamed cheese for a night of vivid dreams and never thought to blame the wine, or the late hour, or the stress you carried to bed. Researchers who study dreaming caution against pinning a whole restless night on one food, because so many threads run together. Alcohol, caffeine earlier in the day, screen light, worry, and irregular sleep times all shape how strange and how memorable your dreams feel. Cheese, if it plays a part at all, plays a small one inside a crowded room. This is not a dodge. It is honesty about how tangled the real causes are. The single culprit we like to name is usually one small voice in a much larger chorus. You may have heard of the old British cheese board survey, the one people quote to prove cheese shapes dreams. It is worth meeting it plainly. In 2005, a cheese industry group asked several hundred volunteers to eat cheese before bed and report their dreams, and many described pleasant or unusual ones. But this was a light, informal survey, not a controlled experiment, no comparison group, no blinding, and a sponsor with an interest in the outcome. Researchers treat its findings as a gentle curiosity, not evidence. It is often cited as if it settled the matter. It settled almost nothing, and it is fair to hold it loosely, the way you would hold a fond rumor. Think of how a story grows warmer and rounder each time it is told. The cheese dream idea has traveled that way for a very long time. Long before any survey, Victorian writers joked about cheese dreams, and the Welsh dish rarebit, melted cheese on toast, earned a reputation for strange sleep in old cartoons and tales. What we inherited was a cultural memory, not a laboratory finding. That lineage is charming, and it is part of why the belief feels so solid. But a belief can be old, widely shared, and warmly familiar while still resting on very little measured ground. The age of the story is not the same as the strength of the evidence beneath it. You have likely felt the flushed, slightly restless warmth that a rich meal can bring as you lie down. That warmth is a real physical thing, and it touches sleep. Digesting food, especially fatty food, raises your metabolism a little and can nudge your body temperature up at the exact time it is trying to cool for sleep. Your body lowers its core temperature to drift off, and anything that works against that gentle cooling can keep you nearer the surface. Cheese, being fairly rich, can contribute to that warmth. But so can any dense evening snack. The heat you felt was ordinary metabolism, not a signal that dairy had reached into your dreams. Maybe you have noticed you barely recall your dreams on some nights and remember them in detail on others, with no clear reason why. Dream recall is famously fragile and uneven. Researchers find that whether you remember a dream depends heavily on how and when you wake. A slow, natural rising often erases them, while an abrupt awakening can preserve one vividly. Anything that changes your waking pattern therefore changes your dream diary without changing the dreams themselves. A heavy, late meal is one such thing. So the nights you remembered cheese dreams may simply be nights you happened to wake differently. The dreaming was constant. Only your memory of it shifted. Consider how quickly a single strong experience can teach you a lasting rule. Eat cheese once, sleep strangely once, and the mind ties them together for years. Psychologists recognize this as the way we form everyday cause and effect beliefs, from vivid single events, not from careful counting. One memorable bad night after a cheese board can outweigh dozens of ordinary nights that followed cheese with nothing unusual at all. We rarely notice the calm nights; they leave no story, so the belief survives on its exceptions. What feels like hard-won personal proof is often just one vivid, unsettling evening, remembered long after the many quiet ones faded away. You might expect that if cheese truly caused nightmares, science would have measured it clearly by now, the way it measures caffeine or alcohol. That gap is itself telling. When researchers have looked, the studies on specific foods and dream content are few, small, and inconclusive. There is some evidence linking late eating and disturbed sleep in general, but almost nothing isolating cheese as a dream changer. The honest summary is that the question has been more repeated than researched. This does not prove cheese is innocent. It means the confident claims have outrun the evidence. Where the folklore speaks in certainties, the actual science can only offer a quiet, careful, we do not really know. Perhaps you have felt hungry near bedtime and wondered whether to eat or wait. That ordinary choice touches sleep in ways more real than dream folklore. Going to bed quite hungry can also disturb rest, as a dip in blood sugar and rising hunger signals keep the brain mildly alert. A small snack can steady that, so the picture is not simply food bad, empty good. It is about balance, enough to settle you, not so much that digestion competes with rest. Cheese can play either role depending on how much and how late. The gentler truth is that your body wants a calm middle, neither stuffed nor starving, as it lets the day go. You may notice that people who expect cheese to disturb them often eat it precisely on nights they are already anxious or overtired. That overlap quietly muddies the story. When you are stressed or short on sleep, your dreams tend to grow more intense and more memorable on their own. If that is also a night you reached for a comforting snack, the snack takes the blame for what the stress and fatigue were already doing. Researchers call this kind of tangle a confound, two things happening together, only one of them named. The cheese was present at the scene. That is not the same as being the cause. Presence and cause are easy to confuse in the dark. Think about how rarely you note the nights. Nothing strange happens. This tilt in our attention shapes the whole belief. We remember the vivid, the odd, the unsettling, and we quietly forget the plain. So a person convinced cheese stirs dreams will collect every unusual night that followed it and overlook the ordinary ones entirely. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, the mind's habit of gathering what fits its expectation. It is not dishonesty, it is simply how memory sorts itself. But it means personal experience, however sincere, is a shaky measure here. The evidence you feel you have lived may be a scrapbook that kept only the pages agreeing with what you already believed. You've probably eaten cheese in the daytime 1,000 times without a single strange thought about your dreams. That plain fact quietly undercuts the folklore. If cheese held some special power over the sleeping mind, we might expect its influence to feel constant, not tied only to the late hour. Instead, the whole reputation depends on timing. Cheese near bedtime, cheese as the last thing before sleep. That points the finger away from the food itself and toward when it is eaten. It is the collision of digestion with the delicate opening of sleep that matters, not any dream magic in the cheese. Move the same food to noon, and the mystery simply disappears. Maybe you have wondered whether different cheeses would do different things, a sharp-aged one versus a mild, fresh one. It is a fair curiosity, and the honest answer is that we have almost no reliable evidence either way. People sometimes point to compounds like tyramine, found more in aged cheeses, which can affect blood pressure and, in sensitive people, headaches. But the leap from tyramine to nightmares is speculation, not a measured finding. Researchers have not shown that aged cheese reliably changes dream content. So while the idea sounds plausible, it floats without ground beneath it. It is one of many places where the cheese story offers a mechanism that feels scientific but has never actually been demonstrated. Consider how much of comfort at bedtime comes from ritual rather than substance. The warm drink, the familiar snack, the same small routine each night, these soothe partly because they are yours. Researchers who study sleep habits find that the predictability of a bedtime ritual can matter as much as its ingredients. A little cheese eaten as part of a calm, unhurried evening may settle you not through its chemistry, but through the quiet ceremony of it. This is a gentler way to hold the whole question. The food you reach for before sleep may be doing its kindest work not inside your dreams, but inside the simple, steadying act of reaching for it. You might feel by now a small relief loosening, the sense that one old worry about eating before bed is lighter than it seemed. Hold on to that feeling, because it points somewhere true. Across everything we have touched, the cheese keeps turning out to be a bystander rather than a builder of strange dreams. Timing, portion, expectation, memory, and the ordinary intensity of dreaming do the real work. Researchers cannot rule out some small, subtle effect. The science stays modest, but they find nothing like the dream-haunting power the folklore claims. The thing you were told to fear is, at most, a minor guest in a night your own mind has always run. If you have carried a quiet caution about that last bite of cheese before sleep, notice how differently it sits now. What all of this has shown, piece by gentle piece, is not that food is powerless over your night, timing and digestion are real, but that the specific fear was borrowed, not earned. The question we opened has turned in your hands. We began by asking whether what you eat walks into your dreams. It looks more now like your food waits at the threshold while your sleeping mind does its own quiet work inside. What we have not yet touched is why the dreaming mind is so strange to begin with. Cheese or no cheese? That is where the night leans next. The warmth you just heard about, the slow, ordinary heat of digestion working through the dark, is likely moving in you right now, quiet and unbothered, needing nothing from you at all. Notice how little you have to do for it. The body knows how to tend itself while you rest. It has been doing so long before you learn to worry about any of it. The question we loosened tonight has not closed. We were asking whether your food reaches into your dreams, and it is turning into something softer, whether the strangeness we blame on a late-night bite was ever really about the food, or about the sleeping mind itself. That mind is stranger than any cheese. What waits ahead is not the snack, but the dreaming, where it comes from, why it wanders the way it does. Let the warmth settle. Let the worry set itself down. From here, we drift toward the dream. Maybe you have noticed that the story about cheese and dreams always seems to come with a study attached, as if a number makes folklore feel official. The most cited one comes from the British Cheese Board in 2005, when they asked around 200 volunteers to eat a small piece of cheese before bed for a week and write down what they remembered. Most reported sleeping fine, and many recalled dreams, though this was a survey run by people who sell cheese, not a controlled experiment. Researchers treat it as a gentle curiosity rather than proof. The comfort here is that you were right to wonder where the claim even came from. You may have assumed a study that gets repeated for 20 years would be airtight, only to find the details are thinner than the headline. In that cheese survey, there was no control group, no one eating nothing to compare against, and no way to check whether the cheese changed anything at all. People simply ate a snack, slept, and reported dreams, which most of us do anyway. Scientists call this the missing counterfactual, and without it, the results describe an ordinary night more than a cheese effect. What feels reassuring is realizing the folklore rests on softer ground than it pretends, and there is little here to keep you awake tonight. Perhaps you have heard that cheese contains something that works on the brain, a chemical with a long name that sounds like it ought to do something at night. That something is usually tryptophan, an amino acid found in dairy, turkey, nuts, and many everyday foods. The body uses it to help make serotonin and melatonin, which are involved in mood and sleep timing. The catch, as researchers gently point out, is that the amount in a bite of cheese is small, and it competes with other amino acids to even reach the brain. The soothing truth is that the chemistry is real but modest, nothing in a slice of cheddar is quietly rewriting your night. You might picture tryptophan traveling straight from your plate to your dreams, like a message delivered overnight. The reality studies describe is slower and more crowded. To influence the brain, tryptophan has to cross from the blood into the nervous system, and it shares that crossing with several larger amino acids that often win the space. This is why a protein-heavy snack does not reliably raise brain serotonin the way the folklore imagines. Scientists describe the effect as limited and easily overstated. There is a quiet relief in this. The food you eat does not march directly into the theater of your sleeping mind, no matter how the old story is told. Maybe you have felt that eating late somehow makes your nights busier, your sleep lighter, your mornings full of half-remembered scenes. This is the part of the cheese story with a little more evidence behind it, though still not much. When you eat close to bedtime, digestion keeps the body slightly more active, and researchers have found this can lead to more brief awakenings during the night. Those small wake-ups matter because you tend to remember dreams from the moments you surface from sleep. What settles the mind here is simple. It may not be the cheese itself, but the timing of any late snack, and that is a gentle thing to know. You may have blamed a strange dream on whatever you ate, when the truer culprit might be when you ate it. Studies on late-night eating suggest that a full stomach near bedtime can nudge the body toward lighter, more fragmented sleep. And lighter sleep means you drift closer to the surface more often, catching the tail end of dreams you would otherwise sleep straight through. Researchers are careful to say the effect is modest and varies from person to person. The comfort is that this points away from any one food being to blame. It is the habit of eating late that does most of the quiet work, if it does any at all. Perhaps you have woken from an unusually vivid dream and searched your memory for what you did differently the night before. Scientists who study dreaming remind us that vivid dreams are ordinary, not rare. They simply happen during REM sleep, which returns several times a night for everyone. What changes is not how strange the dreams are, but whether you happen to wake up inside one and carry it into morning. This is why a night with more awakenings can feel like a night with more dreams. The reassurance here is that a wild dream is rarely a warning about your snack. It is your ordinary sleeping brain briefly overheard. You might have noticed that you only recall dreams on certain mornings and assumed those were the nights something unusual happened. Dream researchers describe a clearer explanation. You remember dreams mostly when you wake, during, or just after REM sleep, before the memory fades. On nights of unbroken sleep, the same dreams occur but slip away unrecorded. So a food that fragments sleep, or a bright morning that wakes you at the right moment, can make it seem like your dreams multiplied. Nothing about the dreams themselves has changed. There is a soft comfort in this. A remembered dream is a caught dream, not a stranger one. Maybe you have believed a story so completely that your body seemed to prove it true. Researchers who study expectation call this a suggestion effect, and it shapes far more of our nightly experience than we tend to notice. If you go to bed expecting cheese to give you odd dreams, you are more likely to notice and remember any odd dream and to link it back to the cheese. This is not imagination alone. Expectation genuinely shapes what we attend to and recall. The gentle truth is that much of the cheese legend may live in the anticipation, and knowing that can quietly loosen its hold on your night. You may have heard people insist that one particular cheese, maybe blue cheese or a strong-aged one, is the real dream maker. The 2005 survey did sort its results by cheese type, reporting that different cheeses seem tied to different dream flavors. But with only a couple hundred casual reports, those patterns are far too thin to trust. Scientists would call them noise dressed as signal. no controlled research has shown that Stilton dreams differ from cheddar dreams in any measurable way. What eases the mind is recognizing that these charming little claims are stories, not findings, and there is nothing in them worth taking to bed as worry. Perhaps you have wondered whether it is really the cheese at all, or just the idea of eating something rich and heavy before sleep. Nutrition researchers note that many foods blamed for strange dreams, spicy dishes, heavy meals, sugar, alcohol, share one thing in common: they disturb sleep slightly rather than seeding specific dreams. The effect, when it exists, tends to run through sleep quality, not dream content. Cheese simply became the famous face of a much broader and vaguer pattern. The comfort in this is a kind of permission. You can stop interrogating your dinner because no single food is quietly authoring your dreams. You might carry a small worry that dairy in particular does something unusual to your sleeping brain. For most people, the honest answer researchers give is reassuringly plain. A modest amount of cheese is just food, digested like any other. For those who are sensitive to lactose, some discomfort could disturb sleep and, indirectly, make dreams easier to recall, but this is about digestion, not dream chemistry. Studies do not support the idea that dairy carries a special dream-triggering power. What settles gently here is the ordinariness of it all. Your body treats a bite of cheese much the way it treats most of what you eat. Maybe you have felt that folklore about food and dreams surely carries some ancient wisdom, since so many cultures share versions of it. Historians and sleep scientists find these beliefs everywhere, from tales of heavy suppers bringing nightmares to warnings against eating before bed. What they rarely find is solid evidence beneath the stories. These beliefs likely endured because they offered a simple explanation for something mysterious, why some nights feel stranger than others. The quiet reassurance is that a widely shared belief is not the same as a proven one, and you are allowed to hold the old story lightly, the way you would a bedtime tale. You may have hoped that somewhere there was a careful, modern experiment that finally settled the cheese question one way or the other. The honest state of the science is that very few researchers have studied it directly because it sits closer to folklore than to a pressing health concern. What exists are small surveys, indirect findings about late eating, and general knowledge about how dreams and sleep work. No large controlled trial has confirmed that cheese changes dreams. Rather than leaving you unsatisfied, this can feel like relief. The absence of alarming evidence is its own kind of answer, and it asks nothing frightening of you tonight. What all of this has quietly been circling is that the question was never really about cheese. When you ask whether what you eat walks into your dreams, you are asking whether the small, ordinary choices of your evening can reach into the part of you that you cannot control. And the evidence keeps offering the same soft reply. The reach is far gentler than the folklore claims, more about timing and expectation than any single food. The strange dream you remember is more likely a night you happen to surface at the right moment. What remains ahead is not the cheese, but the quieter machinery of the dreaming mind itself. There is a moment, lying in bed after a late slice of something rich, when you wonder if what you just ate is going to follow you into the night. Researchers who study food and sleep would gently tell you the link is real, but not in the way the old story claims. What you eat close to bedtime does not write a script for your dreams. It changes the shape of your sleep, and the dreams simply borrow that shape. A heavier stomach means more small awakenings, and more awakenings means more chances to surface near a dream and carry a piece back. The cheese did not send the dream. It only left the door ajar a little longer. Maybe you have noticed that the nights you sleep straight through leave you with almost nothing to recall by morning. Studies on dream recall suggest this is the quiet rule beneath the whole cheese folklore. You remember the dreams you wake near, not the dreams you have. Everyone dreams through most of the night, whether the evening ended in cheddar or in water. What differs is how often the surface of sleep is broken, and a late, dense meal tends to break it more. So the strange dream you blame on dairy may have been waiting there all along, unremembered on the calmer nights. The food changed the witness, not the event. You have probably heard someone swear that one particular food gives them the wildest dreams, said with complete certainty. What science offers here is humbler than that certainty. The evidence connecting any single food to any single kind of dream is thin, drawn mostly from small surveys and personal reports rather than careful trials. When researchers try to measure it directly, the effect tends to shrink or scatter, the way a shape dissolves when you look straight at it. This does not mean people are imagining their experiences. It means the mind is very good at finding a cause, and a memorable meal makes an easy one to blame. Think of how quickly you reach for an explanation when something feels off in the morning. Psychologists call this the tendency to build a story backward from an outcome, and dreams are especially open to it. If you had an odd dream and remembered the cheese becomes the reason, even when thousands of other nights with cheese passed without a single strange dream. The connection feels solid because the one time it lined up is the time you remember. Researchers who look at these food and dream beliefs suggest expectation does much of the work. The story you already believe quietly shapes what you notice. Perhaps you have felt a meal sit heavier some nights than others, the same food landing differently. That everyday observation points to something real about why late eating and sleep don't always mix. Digestion is an active process, and asking the body to run it while also trying to power down can leave sleep lighter and more broken. Small studies suggest large or fatty meals near bedtime are linked to more fragmented sleep, though the size of the effect is modest and varies from person to person. It is less that cheese is unusual, and more that a big late meal of almost anything asks the night to work while it rests. You may have wondered whether there is something special inside dairy itself, some ingredient that reaches the dreaming mind. This is where the tryptophan idea usually enters, and where honesty matters most. Cheese does contain tryptophan, a building block the body uses to make serotonin and melatonin, which are involved in sleep. But the amount in a bedtime portion is small, and it competes with many other compounds for entry to the brain. Researchers have not shown that ordinary servings meaningfully shift dream content. The molecule is real. The leap from molecule to nightmare is where the evidence quietly runs out. Consider how easily a single vivid night becomes a story you tell for years afterward. Memory researchers would recognize this at once, because rare and vivid events are the ones that stick. 100 forgettable nights leave no trace, but the one unsettling dream after a late supper gets rehearsed, repeated, and passed along until it feels like a law of nature. This is how a gentle survey from years ago hardened into common knowledge. The pattern people are sure they see is real to them, yet it is built from the handful of nights memorable enough to survive. The forgotten nights never get a vote. You might notice that the foods blamed for strange dreams are almost always the comforting, indulgent ones, rarely a plain glass of water. That pattern is itself a clue researchers point to. The meals we suspect tend to be the ones eaten late, in larger amounts, often when we are already tired or a little unsettled. The mood and the hour may matter as much as the food on the plate. A cheese board shared during a restless, overthinking evening carries the whole evening into the night with it. The The dream may be reading the day you had, using the meal only as its final ingredient. Somewhere in all of this, you may feel the small worry loosening, the one that wondered if a favorite food was quietly working against you. What the research keeps gently returning is a kinder answer than the folklore. There is no solid evidence that cheese plants nightmares, no hidden mechanism turning a bedtime snack into a haunted night. What exists instead is a soft web of timing, memory, and expectation, each part small on its own. The comfort you find in the ritual is likely more powerful than any compound in the food. The story frightened more than the cheese ever did. So the question you carried in, does what you eat at night truly walk into your dreams, has quietly turned in your hands? It looks less like a question about food and more like a question about what you remember of the dark and why. The evidence suggests the night is not so easily commanded by a single slice. It is shaped by how deeply you rest and how often you rise near the surface. What the second half of tonight follows is not whether cheese is guilty, but why we reach so readily for something to blame when sleep feels strange. The food was never really the story. You were. What just settled, the sense that the thing you were quietly blaming may not have been the cause at all, is a soft kind of relief, and you may feel it somewhere in your chest right now, a loosening you didn't plan. Notice how the worry needed a culprit, and how gently the evidence took the culprit away. There is nothing left to guard against tonight. No food waiting to turn on you, no dream lying in ambush. Let your jaw unclench. Let the small suspicion you carried into bed go the way of the nights you never remembered. The rest of the hour follows what actually shapes the dark, and it asks nothing of you but that you stay this soft. There is a moment, drifting off, when the day's last meal seems to reach forward into the images that follow. Researchers who study this describe it less as food entering the dream and more as timing brushing against sleep. When you eat close to lying down, digestion is still gently working while your brain begins its first descent. That overlap does not write the dream's content, it simply keeps the surface of sleep a little more active. And a more active surface is a surface you cross more often, which means you are awake just long enough to catch the dream already in progress. The meal did not send the dream. It only kept the surface of sleep thin enough for you to notice. You may have noticed heavier nights follow richer meals, and lighter ones follow an empty stomach. What researchers can say honestly is modest, fat-heavy, or large late meals take longer to digest, and that slower work can nudge sleep toward being lighter and more broken. Studies here are small and their findings mixed, so this is a gentle tendency, not a rule. The dairy and cheese is simply one food among many that behaves this way. Nothing about it is unique to dreaming. What changes is not the story your mind tells, but how often you surface to notice it being told. Perhaps you blamed a single food for a restless night, when the truer culprit was the hour. Sleep researchers find that meal timing tends to matter more than meal identity or how the night unfolds. Eating within an hour or two of bed keeps the body's core temperature and metabolism slightly raised, and sleep prefers a cooling, settling body. This is why the same slice of cheese at noon leaves no mark, while the same slice near midnight might. The food is a passenger. The clock is doing the steering quietly beneath the folklore. If you have ever woken mid-dream and felt certain something you ate caused it, that certainty is worth being gentle with. Human memory for dreams is fragile, and we tend to reach for the nearest explanation, the cheese on the plate, the late snack. Researchers call this the tendency to build a story around a coincidence. Nothing in the evidence supports the idea that dairy targets your dreams. What it supports is far quieter, Light sleep lets more dreams be remembered, and a memorable dream begs for a cause. The cheese was simply the last thing you touched before the mystery arrived. There is a small comfort in learning that the tryptophan often blamed for strange dreams is present in cheese only in modest amounts. Tryptophan is an amino acid the body uses, among other things, to make serotonin and melatonin, chemicals tied to mood and sleep timing. In theory, more tryptophan could shift sleep chemistry. In practice, the amount in a bedtime slice is small, and it competes with other amino acids for entry into the brain. Researchers suggest the dream effect, if any, is faint. The molecule is real. The tall story built on it is not. You might expect that if any food reshaped dreams, we would have measured it clearly by now. The honest answer is that we have tried, and the results stay thin. Controlled sleep lab studies of specific foods and dream content are rare, small, and rarely repeated. What we know leans on surveys, where people report their own dreams and their own dinners, a method that gathers stories more than proof. This does not mean nothing happens. It means that what happens is subtle enough to slip through our instruments, and honest science says so plainly. Perhaps you have felt vivid dreams cluster near morning, whatever you ate the night before. That pattern is one of the most reliable things sleep science knows. Dreaming grows richer and longer in the later REM cycles, the ones that arrive in the hours before waking. A late meal that lightens your sleep simply raises the odds you wake during one of those rich later cycles and remember it. So the cheese dream you recall may owe less to the cheese and more to when in the night your sleep happened to thin. Timing, again, doing the quiet work. If a spicy or heavy meal has ever left you tossing, you have met the real mechanism at work, not dream shaping, that's sleep disturbing. Foods that are hard to digest, very spicy, or eaten in large portions can raise body temperature, trigger mild reflux, or keep metabolism busy. Each of these can fragment sleep gently. Fragmented sleep means more awakenings, and more awakenings mean more remembered dreams. The dreams themselves are not stranger. You are simply present for more of them. The strangeness we blame on the food is often just the ordinary strangeness of dreaming, seen more often. You may find it easing to know that the cheese belief is not global. It is largely a Western, English-speaking piece of folklore. In many cultures, warm dairy near bedtime is thought to soothe sleep, not disturb it. This tells us something honest, the cheese and nightmares. Idea is shaped as much by culture and expectation as by biology. What we expect to happen at the edge of sleep can quietly shape what we notice. The belief travels through kitchens and stories, not through any measurable property of the food itself. Perhaps you have wondered whether simply expecting strange dreams could summon them. Researchers who study expectation and sleep find this plausible and gently supported. If you go to bed believing a food will stir your dreams, you may attend more closely to your dreams, remember more of them, and read them as stranger. This is not imagination inventing dreams from nothing. It is expectation tuning what you notice and recall. The folklore, once believed, helps confirm itself. The mind leans toward the story it was handed at the kitchen table. If you've ever slept soundly after cheese and felt quietly betrayed by the legend, you were meeting the ordinary truth. For most people, most nights, a modest amount of cheese changes nothing measurable about sleep or dreams. The effect, where it appears at all, is small, inconsistent, and easily swamped by stress, caffeine, alcohol, or the simple hour you ate. Science does not promise the belief is entirely empty, only that it is far weaker and far less specific than the confident telling suggests. The reassurance here is real. The slice on your plate is mostly innocent. You may have noticed that alcohol, not food, is the more honest disruptor of dreams. Researchers find that a drink near bedtime suppresses early REM sleep, then lets it rebound later in the night, often as more vivid, more fragmented dreaming. This rebound effect is far better documented than any cheese effect. If a late evening of wine and cheese left your dreams strange, the wine is the more likely author. The cheese, once again, stands accused for keeping the wine company. Honest attribution matters, even at the edge of sleep. Perhaps you have felt that a very full stomach makes sleep shallow, and here the evidence agrees more steadily. Large meals late at night are consistently linked with lighter, more interrupted sleep, mainly through digestion, temperature, and mild reflux. This is one of the firmer findings in a field full of soft ones. Yet notice what it says. The disturbance is about quantity and timing, not about any single ingredient reaching into your dreams. A large plate of anything eaten too late can thin your sleep. Cheese is only memorable because a story was told about it. If you have ever tried to eat for better dreams, science offers little to guide you, and that honesty is its own kind of gift. There is no reliable food that sharpens or softens dream content on demand. Some small studies hint that overall diet quality relates to sleep quality, which relates loosely to dreaming. But these are gentle correlations, not levers you can pull. The dream remains largely beyond the reach of the dinner plate. What you can influence is your sleep steadiness. And steadier sleep simply means you notice your dreams a little less. What the night keeps quietly showing is this. The belief was never really about the cheese. It was about the very human wish to find a cause for the strangeness that visits us in sleep. We eat, we dream, and the nearest thing on the plate takes the blame. The question we carried in, whether what you eat truly walks into your dreams, is turning into a gentler one. Not which food shapes the dream, but why did we so need a food to shape it? The answer forming is small and kind. The dream was mostly already there. You may feel a little lighter knowing that dreams arise from the brain's own overnight work, largely indifferent to your last snack. During REM sleep, the brain replays, sorts, and loosely stitches memory and emotion into the odd narratives we call dreams. This process runs on its own machinery, neurochemistry, memory, the day's leftover feeling. Food can jostle the timing of sleep around this process, but it does not sit down and write the script. The strangeness is authored inside you, by a mind doing its nightly housekeeping, whether or not cheese was ever on the table. Perhaps you have sensed that stress colors your dreams more than any meal ever could, and researchers would gently agree. Emotional state before sleep is one of the more reliable influences on dream tone. Anxious days tend to seed more troubled dreams. A worried mind that also happened to eat cheese may blame the cheese and spare the worry. This is not a failing. It is easier to change a food than a feeling. But honest science points back toward the day you carried, not the slice you swallowed, as the truer weather of the night's dreams. If you have ever noticed that unfamiliar sleep, a new bed, a strange room, brings odder dreams, you've met a stronger force than diet. Novel or disrupted environments reliably alter sleep depth and dream recall. Travel, noise, temperature, an unfamiliar pillow, each thins or stirs sleep in ways well beyond any food. The cheese belief endures partly because food is easy to point at, while these quieter disruptions go unnamed. What actually shapes the strangeness of a night is usually the whole shape of that night, its comfort, its calm, its interruptions, not one item from the fridge. You may take comfort in how modest the honest conclusion is. The science neither crowns cheese a dream maker nor fully clears it, because the effect is too small and too tangled to pin down. This is what real evidence often looks like, not a verdict, but a careful shrug. Researchers can say that late, heavy, or rich meals lighten sleep a little, that lighter sleep means more remembered dreams, and that expectation does the rest. Beyond that, the claims thin into folklore. There is a quiet honesty in a science willing to say, we are not sure, and to leave the mystery gently intact. Perhaps you have wondered why such a flimsy belief lasted so long. The answer is human, not chemical. The story is charming, memorable, and just plausible enough. It gives a name to something formless, the odd dream, and a small ritual to explain it. Beliefs like this survive because they comfort more than they inform, and because so few of us ever check. Learning the evidence is thin does not spoil the folklore. It simply lets you hold it lightly as a story rather than a warning, and lets one small bedtime worry finally set itself down. If you have ever wanted a single clear rule for eating and sleeping, the kindest true one is unglamorous: eat gently and not too late, and let the rest go. Most sleep researchers land near this quiet advice, that a light, earlier evening meal supports steadier sleep, and steadier sleep is calmer sleep. This says nothing special about cheese, and everything about timing and moderation. It is a rule you can follow without fear, without banishing a food you love. The dream will still come, as it always does. You will simply meet it from a deeper, quieter place. You may notice that the more you learn, the less there is to worry about, and that is the point. The evidence, followed honestly, does not hand you a list of forbidden foods. It hands you back your ease. A slice of cheese is not a doorway to nightmares. It is a small pleasure that, eaten sensibly, leaves your dreams to their own devices. The folklore asked you to be watchful. The science, gently, gives you permission to stop watching and to let the night take its ordinary, harmless course. Perhaps you can feel now the belief loosening from something feared into something almost fond. The cheese dream was never a threat, only a story we told to make the mysterious feel handled. Underneath it, the real picture is calm. Your dreams belong to your sleeping brain. Your sleep responds mostly to timing and comfort, and food plays a small, indirect, easily overstated part. There is nothing here to guard against tonight. The worry you carried in was borrowed from folklore, and folklore, unlike evidence, was never something you had to obey. You may find it steadying that the honest scientific stance and the peaceful one turn out to be the same. To say the effect is small, the evidence is mixed, the story is mostly cultural, is not to dismiss your experience, it is to free it from a false cause. Your vivid dream was real. Your restless night was real. They simply did not come from the cheese. Releasing that misattribution does not take anything away. It gives back a quieter relationship with the plate, the pillow, and the strange, ordinary theater of sleep. Here is what the night has been showing, piece by piece. What you eat does not truly walk into your dreams. It only, sometimes, holds the door of sleep open a little wider, so you remember the dreams already there. The famous belief rests on one small, playful survey, a modest amount of tryptophan, and the ordinary way a late meal thins sleep. The rest is culture and expectation. The dream is authored inside you. The food is, at most, a minor edit to when you wake. That is the whole of the honest answer, and it asks nothing more of you than to rest. Digestion has a rhythm of its own, working quietly through the evening without a single instruction from you, slowing now, settling, letting the body cool towards sleep. the way it has every night of your life. Right now, without effort, that settling is happening, and the small worry you brought to bed is loosening along with it. What remains to be said tonight does not ask to be examined. It only asks to be received, the gentle truth that the dream was always yours, never the plate's, and that there is nothing on it to fear. What we have been circling all along is nearly in reach, and you can let yourself drift the last of the way toward it. By now, the old warning has grown quieter, hasn't it? The idea that a bite of cheese sends monsters into your sleep was never built on much. Researchers who look for a direct food-to-nightmare link keep finding the same thing. The evidence is thin, the studies are small, and most of what people report is shaped by what they already expected. The dream was rarely about the cheese. It was about the story wrapped around the cheese. You've probably repeated a food belief without ever checking it. Scientists call these food folk beliefs, and they spread because they feel true, not because they were tested. A claim gets passed from one kitchen to the next, gathering certainty with each telling until it sounds like fact. The cheese and dreams idea traveled exactly this way, warm, memorable, and almost entirely unmeasured. What felt like knowledge was really just a well-worn story. Think of how often comfort came from a small nighttime ritual rather than the food itself. Researchers who study sleep habits find that the routine around a snack often matters more than the snack. The warm mug, the quiet kitchen, the familiar taste, these settle the nervous system through expectation and repetition. The dairy is almost incidental. What eased you towards sleep was the ritual your body had already learned to trust. Maybe you have felt calmer simply because you believed something would help. Scientists call this the expectation effect, and it is remarkably powerful around sleep. When you trust that a habit soothes you, your body often follows that belief toward calm, whether or not the food does anything. This is not imagination failing you. It is your mind doing quietly helpful work, turning belief into a real felt sense of ease. There is that gentle heaviness that sometimes comes after warm milk before bed. People often credit tryptophan, the amino acid found in dairy, for that drowsy feeling. But researchers are careful here. The amount in a normal serving is small, and it competes with other nutrients to reach the brain. The effect on sleep is limited and uncertain. The warmth and the ritual likely soothe you far more than the chemistry ever could. You may have eaten late and then woken remembering a vivid dream. Researchers suggest a simple, gentle explanation. Eating close to bedtime can lightly fragment sleep, nudging you awake a little more often. And waking briefly is exactly when dreams get remembered. The food did not invent the dream. It only thinned sleep for a moment longer, so a dream that was always there could be carried back into the morning. Notice how the strangeness of a dream can feel like it came from outside you, but the science points inward. Dreams draw on memory, mood, and the ordinary residue of your day, not on the last thing you chewed. A late snack might change how well you sleep, yet the content of the dream belongs to your own mind. What visited you at night was already yours, waiting to be noticed. You might remember a night blamed on cheese that was really shaped by something else entirely. Sleep researchers point to the quieter, well-documented disruptors. Caffeine lingering in your system, a warm room, a restless mind, or simply eating too much too late. These are gentle, ordinary things. They explain far more about a rocky night than any single food, and they carry no blame, only the soft mechanics of a body doing its best. Consider how memory quietly edits your nights. Researchers find that we remember the unusual and forget the ordinary. A strange dream that follows cheese gets stored and retold. A strange dream after toast is forgotten by breakfast. This is called selective recall, and it built the myth almost by itself. The cheese did not cause the pattern. Your memory simply kept the nights that fit the story you were told. You have likely trusted a claim more because many people repeated it. Scientists describe this as social proof, and it shapes food beliefs deeply. When enough people say cheese brings odd dreams, the idea feels verified by sheer repetition, even with no study behind it. This is a very human way of knowing. It is also why a thin belief can feel solid, held up not by evidence, but by everyone else's certainty. There is comfort in a bedtime habit that stays the same each night. Sleep researchers find that consistency itself is soothing. The body relaxes into what it can predict. A familiar snack becomes a signal that the day is closing. The specific food matters little. The sameness is what your nervous system reads as safety. What calmed you was not the cheese. It was the quiet promise that tonight would feel like the nights before. You may sense that the whole question is softer than it first appeared, and this is where it has been settling all along, not toward a hidden danger in your kitchen, but toward how gently belief and comfort shape a night. The dairy carries almost nothing. The ritual, the expectation, the familiar dark carry nearly everything. The answer was never frightening. It was tender and mostly about you. Feel how the worry has been thinning as the night deepens. There is nothing on your plate tonight strong enough to reach into your dreams and turn them against you. The science, small and honest as it is, keeps returning to the same quiet reassurance. What shapes your sleep most is not the last thing you ate, but the calm you let settle around it. That calm is already here, gathering slowly. Picture a kitchen going dark at the end of a long day, the last warm cup rinsed, the counter quiet, the small bedtime ritual finished without ceremony. Let that same stillness move through you now. The belief you carried in about food and dreams is loosening on its own, needing no answer from you. Let it settle to the bottom like sediment in still water, and let the worry go quiet with it. Comfort was never in the cheese. It was always here, in the settling. You may have wanted the myth to be true, in a small way, a simple cause for a strange night. But the gentler truth asks less of you. Researchers keep finding no reliable food to nightmare link, only the soft interplay of habit, expectation, and memory. There is nothing to avoid, nothing to fear on the plate. The night is simpler and kinder than the folklore made it sound. And so the question you brought into the dark can rest. What you eat at night does not truly walk into your dreams, not the way the old stories promised. It may brush the edges of your sleep, stir a memory here or there. But the dreams themselves are yours, drawn from your own days. The dairy was never the author. You were all along. Notice how little the food actually mattered once you looked closely. The warmth mattered, the ritual mattered, the believing mattered. Study after small study points to comfort arriving through expectation and routine, not through any secret in the cheese. This is a soft finding, easy to hold. The thing that soothed you was never the substance. It was the gentle, familiar shape of the moment itself. You can feel how a bedtime worry loses its weight once it is understood. There was never much beneath the cheese and dreams belief. A small survey, a warm story, a mind eager to connect a snack to a strange night. Seen clearly, it dissolves into something harmless. And harmless things are easy to set down. The worry you carried in is lighter now, almost weightless in the dark. Perhaps you can sense the whole belief becoming a kind of comfort of its own. Even a myth, gently understood, can settle you, because now it holds no threat. The science asked nothing frightening of you. It only showed how belief and ritual do the soothing work that food gets credit for. What remains is a quiet, unworried night, and permission to simply rest inside it. There is a softness in knowing the answer was never sharp. No single food waits to ambush your dreams. The truth is slow, small and warm, comfort built from habit, calm built from expectation, sleep built from the familiar dark. Nothing here needs guarding against. You can let the last of the wondering loosen. The night is safe, and it was always going to be. Feel how the ritual matters more than any ingredient in it. The warm drink, the dimmed room, the same small motions each evening. These are what your body reads as rest. Researchers keep pointing back to routine as the quiet engine of comfort. The cheese was only ever a passenger. What carried you towards sleep was the gentle, repeating shape of the night you already know by heart. You were close now to letting the whole question go. It no longer needs solving. Whether cheese stirs dreams or not has dissolved into something softer, the understanding that comfort lives in the ritual, not the plate. There is nothing left to check, nothing left to fear. The belief has become as harmless as the dark around you, and just as easy to rest inside. Notice the quiet that comes when a small worry is finally understood. The strange dream story has thinned to almost nothing, and in its place is something gentler, a calm that never depended on what you ate. This calm was always available. It was waiting beneath the folklore the whole time, asking only that you stop looking for danger where there was only comfort. There is warmth in realizing your dreams were always your own. Nothing on the plate could claim them. They rose, as they always do, from your days and your memories and the soft machinery of your resting mind. The food was never the storyteller. And knowing that, you can let the night carry your dreams without worry. They belong to you, and they always did. Feel how completely the worry has settled now. There is nothing to avoid, nothing to fear, nothing left of the old warning, but a warm little story you no longer have to believe. The science, honest and small, only ever pointed you back toward comfort. And comfort is already here, wrapped around you in the quiet, asking nothing more than that you rest. It was never really about the cheese. It was about the small comfort you reach for at the end of a day, and the gentle way believing in it made the night feel safe. What eases you into sleep was never the food on the plate. It was the ritual, the warmth, the quiet permission to let one more day close. And tonight, you can simply take that comfort and rest inside it. The cheese was never the point, and somewhere in the last hour you stopped needing it to be. What soothes you at the end of a day was always the small, warm ritual, the familiar cup, the dimmed room, the belief that this quiet moment is yours to keep. The folklore promised danger on the plate and delivered none. What it hid all along was something kinder, that comfort lives in the reaching, not the substance. Tonight, you didn't uncover a secret about food. You loosened a small worry you had carried to bed without ever questioning it. And now it's gone, dissolved into the dark, leaving only the warmth that was underneath it the whole time, the ordinary, dependable comfort of a night that asks nothing of you and gives quiet anyway. But comfort at the plate is only one place. The body reaches for calm. Why do some evening rituals settle you so completely, while others leave the mind still turning long after the light is out? The food science, facts to fall asleep. To playlist keeps returning to that quieter question, from many gentle directions. That video is waiting whenever you are ready. You can let this small worry dissolve now, the way a warm drink fades from the tongue, leaving only the calm behind it. Let your body grow heavy, the way it does when a day has finally fully closed. If sleep comes, let it carry you toward the plain, unworried comfort that was underneath the folklore the whole time. If your eyes have already closed, there is nothing here to open them for. Rest well, quiet one. What comforts you was never on the plate, it was always the gentle ritual of letting the day go, where curious little questions soften into sleep. Night.